Hey, I'm Robert with Something Beautiful, and I just want to share with you how my failure in high school led to my success later on in life. Now, in high school, I'm sure everybody knows that kid where they're very intelligent and they're very capable of doing all the work, but they never do. And I was very much that kid. That's me to a T. I was the kid who would fall asleep in class, but yet I'd have all the answers. I'd get all my work done, so I'd talk a lot in class. I was a troublemaker. All those things fit me to a T. And the really positive thing about all those things were that it really helped me though for a lot of my schooling. But when it came to high school, I was just kind of burnt out on school completely. And I just had no desire to even participate in any sort of way. And it progressively got worse. Like freshman year, I was definitely much more like involved in school because of the fact that I think school mattered a lot more to me from like a friend's perspective. Like that's where a lot of my friends were focusing, and I just felt the need to kind of like fit in. And that, and that was really nice. And I had my own passions then, but I still didn't really care about school that much. Like, I didn't fail any classes, but then like sophomore year, I'm in classes, but I'm not really feeling it. My friends mostly hang out outside of school. I mostly hang outside of school too with them. I'm not in school as much just by that, by that alone. And I'm starting to slip and I have one class. I remember I had this one class where I get my report card and I look at it and I get all my grades, and on this one report card, it says like 8%. And I had 8% in a class, and it was so jarring to see that because I didn't even know you could get an 8%, and of course, like I showed it around to people like a badge of honor because I was an idiot. I'm like, oh, look what I got. I got an 8%, and it's funny to laugh at now because I don't even know how that's possible. But it was really sad because of the fact that I was just failing consistently. Like even on myself, I just didn't care. And a lot of that had to do with, a mixture of reasons. Like I definitely didn't have the best home life, and I definitely didn't have this or that in my life. And I probably was struggling with maybe different forms of ADHD or different disorders, that were very similar. Because at the time I was taking Vyvanse and it just wasn't good for me at all. That also happened freshman year, but freshman year I wasn't initially as like, didn't impact me as negatively. Sophomore year, it was like awful. And so it was definitely something that really impacted me a lot. And sophomore year, I actually had a really cool photography class. And that's when I really discovered like a love for photography. And also during sophomore year, my grandfather died, which was a huge event and really changed my life in so many ways, which I'll probably delve into more in other videos. But needless to say, sophomore year was a shipwreck of a year. And junior year was no different, really. But the difference was with junior years, I knew I wanted to be a filmmaker. But I still didn't have this kind of like, I really just didn't care about school. I had no care for school. And junior year was really rough because we had so many different incidents happen. We had two my classmates. I'm sorry. I don't know how to say this because it's still kind of, honestly, it still kind of hurts me to even talk about, but, and I don't talk about it a lot, but two of my classmates committed suicide, like within a week of each other. And it was really rough. And we were one of the only classes that had both of them in the class. And that really affected the class a lot, obviously. And not only that, though, it just affected my whole year. I think everybody was really scared that whole year about like all these negative things that were going to happen. And on top of that, my best friend actually was a year older than me. So I was just, I think I was really worried about like that transition of him leaving and like what that would be like. And it was really rough on me the whole time junior year. It was really difficult to get through. But the good news was, like I said, I had my passion, and it was something I was so passionate about. Film. I was just so passionate about it that I was like, I knew immediately I really wanted to go to film school. Even if nobody around me, like I knew, had gone to film school, or anybody that I had talked to, or I didn't even know anybody in the film industry, in any capacity. And yet I just was so determined. I just felt like that was like my path. And so junior year of high school, I applied to this like technical school for filmmaking, and I get in, and I was so excited, and I was so happy. And it just made me so happy. Really. It was such a celebration. And I remember when they were telling me, they said, like, you're the first junior we've ever accepted. And that just made me even happier, but that was short-lived, because soon after that film school closed down, actually, and they stopped accepting admittance. And I actually, if I would have been a senior, I would have gotten accepted. Like I would have been admitted, but because I was a junior, I wasn't admitted. And it really devastated me, to say the least, because it was something I really wanted. And I really was, I had been dreaming about it for so long. And this was a school that I really wanted to get into. And it meant so much to me. Like it really meant so much to me that I went to a film school like that, where it was more of like, I can make movies, you know, and I can just focus on being the best filmmaker I can be, you know, and to like have that taken away from you is really devastating, because, you know, I started dreaming and I started having all these daydreams about like what it would be like. And it's not like there's not other film schools. It's just like this one specifically was one I really wanted to go to, and I was really hyped about and I was really excited about. And I'd really been playing up in my mind, you know? And to have that taken away from you really it crushed me so much that like all of senior year, I just refused to even apply to college. I just had no interest, not even not applying, but I just didn't have any interest in like rejection. I had no interest in getting rejected by any colleges. I had no interest in being like, oh, this is my top college, this is my second top college. I had none of that, because I was so devastated. And I remember a lot of senior year was just me skipping classes and floating by. And it was really difficult in a lot of my classes, because I just really like my level of caring went from like if my level of caring was at 50% when I was a junior, or, you know, when I was a freshman, and then it slowly like dwindles, like, you know, 30%, like 20% when I'm a junior, like now it's at like 0. Like I really, maybe even at 5%. Cause I would say maybe 5%, because there was some part of me that didn't want to graduate and I didn't want that embarrassment, but I really did not care at all. Like there was so little care that I had towards that at all. I remember in class, I was in a math class, and they're teaching the class and I'm just coloring on a color book. Like I do not care at all. And I remember my teacher would get mad at everybody else who was coloring on the color book except me, because I think it was so evident that like, not only did I not belong in that class, because I was just always underachieving. I was always like asking everybody for like the weakest classes. Like I remember my teachers junior year, sophomore year, they'd be like, what math class do you want to be in? We'll put you in any math class. And I just told them like the lowest one that you would like actually reasonably put me in. And they did every time, because I really just had no care for pushing myself in that way academically. But on top of that, I really just didn't even care about, I didn't care about math, and I still don't really care about math, even though I am pretty good at it. I just found myself being like just completely done with it all, you know, to the point where, like I said, I'm just coloring in class, and I think my teachers knew it. I think some days I would just skip, some days I wouldn't, you know, it was just on and off. It really would just it would be mostly based off of like how I felt, you know, each given day. And it's interesting too, because I didn't mention this a second ago, but like, and slowly like behind the curtain, I think whenever I took this one class, behind the curtain, I would say like, yeah, like junior year when I took a class, it's called AP English. It was the hardest class I've ever taken in my life. We had like 30 kids to begin with, and then it went down to 8 kids, or maybe 12. It was like 8 to 12. And it was rough. I remember one time the teacher put my paper up there, and she would just ripped it apart. But she took off my name, but like, she was known for making kids cry. It was tough not to. It was rough. It was honestly rough. But behind the curtain though, with that class, I kind of actually started transitioning from like my love or my ability in math to like my ability in language arts and in English. And so, you know, senior year, I'm actually kind of excelling at English, and I'm actually doing pretty well at English. And I had a really cool teacher in English. And so he's really understanding, and that really helped a lot. Actually, it really encouraged me. And so did all my teachers really liked me, and we had a really, I had good relationships with all of them, but I really just didn't care about school, you know? And I remember when I was doing the senior walkthrough, which is this like parade for seniors through the school. I remember I was doing my senior walkthrough. I remember my science teacher, she like hugged me and she whispered in my ear, like, just don't get yourself in too much trouble. And that really stuck with me, because I think so much of my life has been me putting myself, you know, digging myself in a hole, like an unnecessary hole, because I was just too lazy, or because I just didn't want to do it, or because I was just lost. And I think that's a really tough thing to realize about yourself, to say, hey, look, like a lot of the issues that you deal with are because of yourself. And it definitely like weighs on you. Like you start realizing like, hey, look, like I can be doing better. I really can't be blaming anybody else, because it really is just me at the end of the day who's messing with my own success. And that was a tough pill to swallow. Especially because like after high school, I just literally filled out the junior college application, and I just, and I just started attending classes. I didn't even have to really apply, honestly. And that was really rough, realizing like, hey, look, now you got to go to junior college, and now you got to pick yourself up, and now you got to move forward. And it was rough too, because I'd really want to go to film school, obviously. And just to think like, now I'm not even going to film school. And that was a rough summer. That was a pretty rough summer. But I knew I had to get out of this hole. Like, I knew that I had to push myself through it. And I had to persevere. And I had to succeed in a way that was becoming or befitting of my abilities. And I knew I had to push myself, and I had to give myself no excuses. And I had to like absolutely achieve everything that I wanted to. And I had to be able to say, hey, look, like whenever I apply to these schools, these other colleges, I want to be able to say, hey, look, I gave it my all. And if I do fail at achieving those things, like going to film school or getting into a film school, then like, at least it's because, I wasn't good enough, rather than like, I didn't try hard enough. And so my whole method whenever I got into community college was like, just keep pushing yourself to the next level. Like, just keep pushing yourself. And I remember the first thing I did was I said, hey, look, every time you have an assignment, this is really where like in high school, I really failed, I think, was every time I had an assignment in high school, every time I had an assignment in high school, every time I had an assignment in high school, I was like, I don't really care, and that led to so many different things. That led to so many different downfalls. It led to so many different things within school where I just didn't get grades. And I said like, maybe I turn, maybe I don't. I'll see how I feel about it. Whereas when it came to college, I told myself, like, in contrast to that, I said to myself, not only are you going to do every single assignment, like you're not going to miss one assignment. You're going to do every assignment a day early. And so I'd always do this. I set myself a deadline a day early. And I'd say, hey, look, so like if the paper was due by Friday, I'd do it on Thursday. I'd finish it by Thursday. I don't care what happens. I'm finishing it on Thursday. And there was no assignment. You're not going to miss one single assignment. And I was so focused on this. I was so focused on this idea of like not missing one single assignment. And it got to the point where like, I became obsessive about the idea of not missing one. And it became like, every class, it'd be like a small thing. It'd be like, oh, fill out this survey, fill out this. And it'd be like for like bonus points. And I don't even need them. And I would do them. Because I'm like, I'm not going back to that life. And that was so important. Like, hard deadline that rule, to create these hard deadlines on myself to where I have to follow this rule. Absolutely. And it got so intensive for me that like, I mean, when I was in community college, I don't think I missed one assignment. Because I was just so focused. I was so laser focused. There was no going back to that. Now that's the first thing I did. The second thing I did was I said, hey, look, every time I'm doing something, like I'm going to give it my undivided attention. There was a stat I had read that like, if you look at your phone when you study, I think like your cognitive ability goes down by like 60% or something. And that really stayed with me. I don't remember the exact numbers, but that it really stayed with me. That it really that it really shook me. And I thought to myself, like, I can't allow that to be the situation with me. At that time I could barely perform with 100% of my cognitive abilities. I mean, what am I going to do with 40% of them? And so it was so evident to me. Those are the two things I had to do predominantly, was like, do everything that you can to succeed. Like study on the days that you think you need to study. Like if you have a test, study for it. If you have an assignment, do it. And do it a day in advance. And when it came down to focusing, it was like, focus on your schoolwork. Stay so focused. And also, like, another big thing, the third rule that I really had for myself was like, if they ask you to read something, so like say like in an essay, or say like English or whatever class, right? They're like, hey, read this for the assignment. I'd always tell myself, read what's necessary, like go through it all, because I'm really good at like, I mean, I've always been really good at this, but go through and like, and see what you need to focus on, see like the main points, right? And so I'd have this practice where I'd go through and I'd make a list of all the main points. And then I go back through it and I just write down random things that really caught my eye the second reading. Now I wouldn't read like front to back on every page, but I would read in a way that like allowed me to pick up certain things that maybe they would ask, or maybe things that the teacher would pay attention to, or maybe things that would be important, you know? So like stats are a big one. I think a lot of people say that, but stats are a really big one for me. Definitions of words, things like that really helped me a lot. And I think those three things really allowed me to not only succeed in community college, but I mean, excel. You know, I got to the point to where like when I was in community college, I not only did all my assignments and I did very well, but I actually had a 4.0 for very long. I think it was every single year I was on the honor roll, or I don't know what it's called, honestly, because I don't really care. It's not something I value as much as I value the fact that I really put in all my effort. But I was on it every single year. And on top of that, actually, I got invited to an honor society, which is actually how the honor society was called, I think it was called Phi Theta Kappa. I think it's the highest honor society you can be a part of in community college. And the really important fact about this is that like that's actually what led to me getting emails from colleges like Harvard, Columbia, you know, other Ivy League schools and other like top, I think Cornell emailed me one time. I don't know. I kind of like the name Cornell though. It's a cool name. But anyways, that's what led to all these different colleges emailing me. And even still, they still email me. And I think a lot of that was because of the fact that I'd really set those rules for myself and I had stayed steadfast to them and I hadn't wavered. Like it didn't matter to me if I succeeded the year before. I was focused on right now, in this moment, in this second, in this time. I remember this, and it reminds me of this thing I was reading about, or I heard Roger Federer say, where he said he had won 80% of his matches, but on a point-to-point basis, he'd only won like 56%. And I think in that way, it's like every time I did an assignment, I was so focused on like finishing that assignment. And I think just staying on that step-by-step path, I think that helped me so much. And it really helped me achieve all those things that I really wanted to achieve, that I was really striving for, that I was unable to achieve in high school because I had like completely no foundation whatsoever. And I think if you focus on building your foundation one brick at a time, and you focus on this step-by-step process, I mean, I don't know if you can do anything but succeed, honestly. I don't know if there's I don't know if there's another way to do it or not, but I just know like I don't think there's a way you can fail if you just focus on that brick by brick process. And I think, again, that's how you get to that point. Luckily, I did end up getting into film school, and I ended up going to college for film because of this. And I think that a lot of the reason why was because of the success the brick by brick success that I had built in community college, because I had to bring myself back up. And a lot of it was that the failure in high school taught me like, hey, look, it allowed me to reflect on the things that were going really wrong. And it allowed me to say, hey, look, these are the things that you need to fix, right? You need to fix the fact that you're not doing assignments, that you're not focusing, that you're not actually giving your attention, that you're not trying, you're not pushing yourself hard. And that's part of that's what telling myself, hey, look, I have to get it done before the deadline did. It pushed me to do it before, to strive even harder. It pushed me to do better than my classmates. That's what doing all my assignments did. It forced me to actually do everything and focus on class. That's what not touching my phone whenever I'm studying or when I'm working on an assignment did. It allowed me to focus more. It allowed me to have better cognitive ability, allowed me to reach my peak, essentially, at least in regards to the work that I was doing. And the third one, I don't recall what it is now, honestly. I've been yammering for so long. The third thing really allowed me, though, I'm certain of it, allowed me to do all those things too, you know? It was the reading. Yeah, the reading really allowed me to excel. The reading allowed me to push myself forward again in a way that would like push me, because I'm not allowed to read front to back now. Now I have to read it at such a accelerated rate that I'm forced to grow out of it, you know? And I think forcing yourself to grow is such a healthy thing and such an important thing if you want to be successful in any endeavor that you take. Forcing yourself to grow, giving yourself limitations and saying, hey, look, this is the situation, work through it. And I think it's so valuable, and I think that would help anybody. And I know it helped me. I know it changed my life, and it helped me. It led me down this path, this more successful path. It led me down the successful path that my failures in high school would never allowed me to achieve. And in many ways, you know, I share this with everybody. I share this with you because I hope that it helps you. I hope that it gives everybody the strength to say, hey, look, like I can get over this. I can overcome these issues in my life. And I really hope they do allow everybody that hears this, everybody that sees this. I really hope that it helps everybody overcome their own struggles and allows them to see, hey, look, like I'm not alone in my own struggles. I'm not alone in these struggles. And there are people who have been in maybe a worse position or a better position in some ways, but it's been in a bad position who've overcome this. And I hope it encourages you to overcome those things. I hope it encourages you to just push yourself to achieving the things that you want to achieve. I'd love to hear down in the comments if this helps you, or I'd love to hear your own stories, hear what you have to say. Thank you so much for listening to this. I hope it helps everybody. And I hope, if anything, I hope it entertains you. Maybe my rambling, maybe it was interesting, maybe it wasn't. I hope you guys, I don't know. I just really would like to hear from you guys. I'd really like to hear anything you have to say. Negative, good, bad. Yeah, so unlike and unsubscribe, or like and subscribe, or do whatever floats your boat. I hope you guys have a great day, and I hope you guys enjoy this. Peace.